My name's Leah Condon, and this is day one of the 2024. It is not the Reno SSA convention, but you are in Knoxville, Tennessee. So introductions. So again, my name is Leah. I had my first retrieve experience in summer 2006 when this cute guy I was dating in college decided to land his sailplane out. And on his very first solo cross country, which I didn't know, and I just rode along and thought that would be pretty cool. So that's the first photo there with the Cherokee 2 wooden fabric glider. I decided to get my PPL glider in 2010. Fall 2010, I'll let you guys do the math. But as much as I enjoy the soaring community, I do have too many hobbies and have had some trouble staying proficient and current with my sailplane rating. So I do tend to, most of my participation in the soaring community is as crew or as the retrieve car driver, most of which have been for my husband Tony, who's in the front, so contest ID Kilo. But I have picked up a few of our friends out of fields when they're outstanding there a few times as well. So overall, so a retrieve, just to define what is retrieve, so that's anytime you don't land back at the airport you took off from, or the glider port you took off from, is the definition I'm going to be using. Rough count and tally, I'm a little over 40 right now. So from 2006 to today, I have done approximately 40 retrieves spread out over 9 different states and 3 different continents. Shortest retrieve was a rope break at our club, and it was a walking retrieve, so we can round up maybe to a quarter of a mile. The longest retrieve I've chased on was a straight out free distance flight that Tony made from Wichita, Kansas, or our local Kansas Soaring Association is just outside of Hutchinson, Kansas, and Yoder, but to Lamar's, Iowa, so about 350 miles or so. So origins of this talk. We'll get started. Little icebreaker, see whose coffee is kicking in yet this morning, but who here has ever landed out in a glider? All right, so fairly good show of hands. Those of you who've landed out, have you ever been on another retrieve? So a retrieve that you have not been the person landed out in. Okay. In 2022, at the Club Class Nationals, friends Alexandria Fairbairn and Kimmin Hudson were working the retrieve desk. And there is a day, one of those days that contest organizers don't really like if you're here for Rich Owens' presentation before mine, where most of the fleet landed out. And they overheard my phone conversation with Tony. And by the time we got done on the phone, off the phone, checked in with them, and I was ready to go, they were all just kind of staring at me. And I kind of looked at them and said, what? And they're the ones who peer pressured me to give this talk. So there's really a few things that you can do. No one wants to land out, but we do fly aircraft without an engine, and land out sometimes are just part of the game. I'm not going to talk to you too much from the pilot aspect of landing out, but it is going to be a lot of the communication side. Tony's COVID hobby that he picked up in 2021 and 2022 was flying hot air balloons. And the Balloon Federation of America is the SSA equivalent. And at their convention in 2022, what I really liked is that they had a crew track. So like there's an Ostiv room here, you have different conference topics in the different conference rooms, but they have a track that's specific to crew members. And so I thought that was really interesting and something that the SSA conventions don't always have. So this pitch is my take on trying to provide some education to the crew as well as the pilots. So there's 3 situations in general for retrieves. So we'll cover all 3, but the main takeaway I have is that they all have more in common than they have differences. End of the day, you still have a glider for whatever reason that's not at its home field. So we're going to talk about contest crewing, or the failure to complete a task, downwind dashing, or when you're chasing as a crew member, you know this aircraft is not going to land back from where it took off from intentionally. And you have normal flight operations, so your rope breaks, your rain front moves through and cuts you off from your home field, so your unplanned retrieve. Who to chase or retrieve. So a lot of times we'll have people come up to Tony and he'll get a lot of the, oh, you're so lucky, you know, my wife would just leave me out in a field. So who do you have to go and pick you up? So the one obvious is if you do have a significant other, if they are new, like I first was, and still trying to impress the pilot who's landed out, they may want to come in and pick you up. You can be long-suffering, so that's me cleaning a wing in a narrow mine at the WGC this last winter, and who just likes to have the pilot home at night. So we'll decide to pick you up. If you are an instructor, and even if you aren't, but you're a member of a club, odds are that you have students, so either student pilots or freshly minted pilots who still have a working relationship with you from their time as a student. So those are great. We've got a picture in the middle. The middle photo is Tony and two of his students who chased him on one of his straight out flights. Other glider pilots. So odds are, you know, say you want to fly cross country one weekend, the other person might want to fly cross country the next weekend. So do some tradesies. Aviation enthusiasts. So we live in a city that does have some local universities that do have aviation programs, and so even if they maybe aren't as savvy or aware of what sailplanes are, odds are they're interested in aviation. So reach out to them, see if they want to come out to the glider port, learn a little bit about it. That's how Tony first found the sport, was, you know, he was a power pilot hanging out at the airport, and this strange guy hitchhiked home, back to the home fields after landing out, and just needed a strong back who didn't know any better to go help him with a retrieve. You also can, some of the international contests we've been at, people will hire a local pilot or a local person to be their crew. So that's always an opportunity as well. Rich was talking a lot about the kids and kids recruiting. We've had really good luck with friends who are retired, and so who can take off if there's that perfect day on a Tuesday to go straight out or to try an attempt at a big triangle. They're really excited. Sometimes they pair up with each other and they'll go chase while I'm stuck in my cubicle and just watching Tony's flight. Why should I retrieve, chase, motivation, kind of what's in it for you as crew? So trade, we talked about I want to fly cross country today, but next weekend or the next opportunity when the weather looks good, I'm happy to give up my flying time to go crew and chase for you. Mentorship. So one of my favorite photos on here is Tony's in the standard Cirrus with the brightly colored umbrella, is our friend Mike Davis. He started flying gliders in, the 1970s, took some time off from the sport and got into it once his kids had left the nest. And really active club member, but has never actually been to a contest himself. And so it was a really good opportunity to have him go and experience what is that like, experience the camaraderie, without maybe that pressure of him having to go and fly it himself. So definitely recommend it if you're interested in starting to tiptoe into the competition world. Crewing for someone is a good opportunity to first step. I like to be part of the team, so that's our latest WGC in Narromine, New South Wales from this past November, December. So crew, yes, you do have to do some work, and it's a lot of time out in the heat, but I really do it because I like the people, I like the community, and I like to be part of the team and part of the adventure. So really the four key things, information that should be exchanged at the point of a land out, whether it's planned or unplanned, are up on the screen in front of you. So the first one is, are you okay, is what I'm gonna ask. So make sure the pilot's safe. Is the glider okay? Was there any sort of damage, anything that could perhaps complicate the retrieve? Where are you is always a kind of that obvious question. And then, is there anything special I need to know about this retrieve? So is it just a standard hook up the trailer, bring the car, pretty simple? Is it, hey, I landed at an airport and I think, I don't want to box it up. Let's go ahead and talk to the tow pilot, see if we can get an aero retrieve. It could be something like, I landed, there is a big rainstorm. I think it's too muddy to actually drive or pull a trailer into the field, or there's a fence. I think we're gonna need some extra help. So typically Tony and I, the two of us, can get our standard steers put away in 15, 20 minutes, even in a field. But in a situation that was taken at, I think, the Hobbs Nationals, Club Class Nationals this last year, they required, one of the other pilots required some additional help. And so people came in and they did lift the fuselage and carried it out of the field. So just communicate with each other to know, is the crew good to go out by themselves, kind of as planned, or do you need to have some additional decisions to make? So where are you? Today's day and age is a lot easier, even when I started to chase in 2006. And so things are getting better. You are getting more cell phone, smart data access, more tracking maps. Do encourage and recommend pilots to fly with some sort of a tracker, be it a cell phone app like IGC Droid, a spot tracker, a Garmin, InReach, whatever that might be. If possible, register it with SSA, your local club, the contest, so that people, if they do have live maps, they can pull it up and track and follow along. It's really important to know what is your coordinate output. So that's what the white box down at the bottom is trying to show. So yes, all the tools can report and tell people where you are, but unless your crew or say the contest retrieve office knows that you're giving your location in decimal degrees, in degrees, minutes, and seconds, in degrees and decimal minutes, whatever that format is, you want to make sure that they actually come and find you, say, in Wichita, Kansas, and not trying to find you in Polynesia, right? So, because that's not going to be as helpful. Some of the resources do enable a crew contact or text. So if Tony lands out his spot tracker, he can hit certain buttons that say, I've landed out, everything's fine, just bring the trailer. Or there's more of an SOS button that he can press that says, I need more help. Make sure that you as a pilot are briefing your crew prior to takeoff, or you as crew, make sure if you have questions, maybe you don't even know if you're crew, have some sort of a working knowledge with the pilot of what their plan is. So where are they planning to fly? If you do know you're going to land out, whose responsibility will it be to load the ground equipment? There's a picture of a pile of just different tail dollies and wing wheels, because you hate to get somewhere and the crew thought the pilot loaded it and the pilot thought the crew loaded it. A checklist for the crew as far as what you actually need if you land out in a field may look different than if you are towing out or just towing the glider back to your normal launch point. So do you need the wing stand? Do you actually need your tail dolly? Maybe you don't need the wing wheel. Make sure you mark and label your equipment. Sounds pretty obvious, but your tail number maybe, or your contest ID. If you use a contest ID and it's a club member who's just used to your tail number, they may not know that's you. So make sure that is communicated, whose vehicle is going to be used and who has the keys, right? So we have a checklist, so the pilot's not allowed to take off with keys in their pocket. So make sure that you know who's driving what, who's going to be hooking up the trailer. So I definitely recommend, if you think you're going to land out as possible, if it's someone who's not familiar with your trailer, the way that we tie down, we operate off of an old naval air base that has a lot of concrete and a lot of embedded rings that you can tie to. It may not be obvious that our trailer is tied around the axle along with the tongue. So if you hooked up and you tried to go somewhere, you would either not go anywhere, or you would maybe have some damage to the trailer, to your ratchet strap. So make sure you have some sort of communication. Demo hooking up the trailer. Just because I know how to hook up a Comet trailer does not mean I know how to hook up your Cobra trailer. So I had a situation in Minden, Moriarty, where I was helping someone else who was going on retrieve, who wasn't familiar with her pilot setup. And I know that the jockey wheel does not stay down when you tow. But in my trailer, I just pull a pin and it comes up. Well, in that case, the Cobra trailer, it comes completely off. And it took us a minute to figure out, well, how does that actually work? Ask for help if you need it. Some of our trailers I can hook up myself, no problem. Our Cherokee 2 home-built trailer, I need a second person because it's heavy. There's plenty of tongue loading on that trailer. Practice de-rigging and loading the trailer. So if the pilot is getting things put together at the beginning of the season, if there's been another land out, try to understand how does the trailer work, how do things hook into each other, making sure that the wing wheels or dollies or all the goodies that are in the trailer, make sure that's up at the front of the trailer from a a trailer tongue weight perspective. Learning how to de-rig a specific glider out in the field is not recommended and not the best time to learn. And most trailers, like we said, are different. So here's just a quick picture. So this is my trailer montage of some, but not all of the different trailers that I pulled and have towed and some of the different tow vehicles. And so all different. Advice for crew, so there's a comment about duct tape. So I am missing duct tape on here. But I learned early on that pants and shoes beat shorts and sandals when you're out in a field. So even if you're hanging out around the airport and you are more comfortable, say in shorts and I wear Chaco sandals, I will have in my car or in the tow vehicle or a go bag with me, I'll have some boots or in some pants just to put on. Don't wear anything that can't get dirty. I'm not sure if it shows up really well, but the bottom picture, Rich mentioned the crew t-shirt. So that's one of the crew t-shirts that to this day is still very much stained orange from the dirt. So it's not your time to wear your favorite clothes out to the glider port. Make sure you pack enough water and snacks for yourself, not just the pilot. Sometimes you get so focused on the pilot that you forget yourself. So make sure that's there. Headlamps come in handy. No one wants or expects to be in the field overnight, but if for whatever reason, maybe you have a flat tire on the retrieve, there's some reason that you get delayed, headlamps do come in handy. Grain elevators and empty parking lots if you need to pull over and check a map if you aren't traveling with a navigator. Know the area that you're going to be driving around. Maybe it's a church parking lot, just whatever that might be. Pull over when in doubt or if you need to check something. Comfort with towing a trailer and practice hooking up a trailer. I had never towed a trailer before my first retrieve. That is also not really a high recommendation. So to tow a trailer, you don't necessarily need to know how, but you have to be willing to learn. Like I said, my first time towing a trailer was on the 4th of July on an unplanned solo retrieve because my boyfriend's glider instructor forgot that his wife had a party for them and he couldn't at their house, so he couldn't actually go and pick him up on that retrieve. Lucky for Tony, I spent the next summer as a wilderness canoe guide, and I really learned how to tow a trailer when I got to drive mini buses with canoe trailers. And so that's really how I learned, was just big open spaces, not a lot of traffic, and getting to drive around. Lead and follow caravan style, so that's the bottom right photo. So in that specific case, we had 3 gliders that landed out in the same field together, and so we just all drove out. So sometimes it makes you feel more comfortable, safety in numbers, that sort of thing. But take a friend or a navigator with, especially when we're doing straight out flights or chasing. I prefer to have a navigator, someone who can have the map pulled up or on their phone, and it just lets me focus on driving. Or vice versa. Also for backing, if you don't have a lot of experience backing, that's helpful. And know if you do need to go in and expect to have to refill your gas tank, know what side of the car that is going to be on if you aren't familiar with that vehicle. So what do pilots need to know? So it's important for you as a pilot to understand your retrieve crew's expectations. So below are my personal list of expectations that I have for the pilots that I chase or retrieve for. Your crew may feel differently. but I expect that the tow vehicle and the trailer are roadworthy. So I've learned some of these lessons the hard way. Fortunately, the really bad tire that's there is something we inspected before going on a trip, and so I knew to have it changed out. Make sure if you do have a spare tire, where is it? Is it buried in the back of the car? Make sure that you have both a spare tire for your chase vehicle and for your trailer. Make sure that it is aired up and ready to go. Tongue weight. How many of you have actually pulled your glider trailer empty? Actually pretty good, yeah. So they do handle differently. So just because you have towed your trailer and you know how it feels doesn't mean that it's going to behave that way when your glider's out of it. So just be aware. Do you need to add that case of water, that toolbox to the front of the trailer to help that tongue weight? Is important. Make sure trailer lights work. Just because they worked last weekend doesn't mean that the electrical gremlins haven't eaten through and that it's going to work again this time. If you're flying, so the unplanned land out, if you're flying a glider, a club glider, does it have a trailer? Okay, it has a trailer. Where is it? Do you know which trailer is the club-specific glider's trailer? Is it roadworthy? All those sort of questions before you fly, even say your club's 233, you never know when a rope break might happen. It is good to have just that situational awareness, that knowledge of what you're getting into. My expectation is I will chase. The longest chase I've done is 8 hours. When I get there, I am not driving home. So we don't have to get a hotel, but if you don't want to spend the night, I am not driving home. So my expectation is it's either then the navigator or the pilot, and so if you're too tired to drive home, then we're getting a hotel. I also charge ice cream. So when we first moved to Kansas and it was 105 degrees outside, traditionally it is a nice big steak dinner is what you pay or reimburse your crew in the sport of soaring. At 105 degrees Fahrenheit, I grew up in Minnesota. I wanted ice cream, I wanted air conditioning, I did not want a hot steak dinner. So what pilots need to know, so be clear of your crew expectations. So when you land out, I will call you about 10 minutes out. So you know that I'm coming. One, I'll call you before I actually leave, but to tell you when I'm getting close. Part of what that means for me is once you've landed out, my expectation is that you will make contact with the property owners if possible. So if you've landed in a field right next to a farmhouse, you'll try to go up and talk to the owners, see if they're comfortable with the trailer driving out into the field, and if they aren't, what does that mean? So that's you as you're sitting twiddling your thumbs, you're not uploading flights to WeGlide or posting to Facebook, you're trying to help think ahead to what happens next. It's also your job to help find, if possible, access to the field. So hopefully you had a nice field that was picked out that didn't have a big fence around it or a big ditch that led into it. But if so, one, can you find the gate? Two, is that gate locked? Do we have permission to find someone with a key to open it? But starting to find solutions to those problems. Find the driveway, find the ramp, obtain permission. Can we take the glider or the trailer out to the glider? I like it when the pilot meets me at the intersection. So that could be the driveway off the main street. It could be just the intersection, how this is where the driveway is and the tall grass. It's hard to see to get into the field. That's my preference. And once again, I don't drive home. Or I'll drive home the next day, but I won't drive home that same late afternoon unless it was a lawn dart. So, advice for pilots. So one, if you have never been on a retrieve, please do so. It helps to appreciate and understand your retrieve crew. It also helps you to manage your disappointment. No one wants to be in a field, especially when you have beautiful queue because the day's cycled and you're on the ground and your friends are still up and flying. But just to remember, your crew, if you're too grumpy, can just leave you there. You know, we don't have to come out and get you. We have your keys, we have your trailer. You know, be polite, and you can punch your pillow later. Also, personal grudge that's held if your crew is at working the club, if they are especially working the line operations and one of the people who's supposed to be there with them doesn't show up and it's over 100-degree day, don't be on the landowner's porch drinking a beer when your crew shows up because, again, crew doesn't drive home. So make good choices, or you could have a Clint Eastwood from Gran Torino looking at you. Other things is if you've never been on a retrieve or if you've never crewed, say you're doing a contest, you're a competition pilot, go crew for someone. So one of my favorite experiences is when Tony got to crew for JP Stewart at the Junior Worlds. And what that meant is, okay, he got to be on the other hand or holding the wingtip and going lower, higher, no lower, higher, in, out. And it gives you that perspective, I think helps you appreciate your crew a little more. So going into the different flavors of contest, and so just most everything we've covered, no matter where or the reason for your land out, is commonalities. Here are some of the quirks. Contest retrieves. So I know Steve Leonard is here at this convention, but this is his brother Ron with his parents. And his mom has a great quote, which is, "Don't worry, the contest will end eventually." So if it's one of those contests, it's 5 days, and you've been out retrieving for all 5 days, know that it will someday come to an end. Right, yes. So it's a great quote. So you too can remember it will someday end. Contest retrieve. So sometimes it can be hurry up and wait. So there's a photo of me in a hammock in Chilhowie because we gridded, and then there was a big sit and a wait, and to figure out launch time was delayed. Or it could be your pilot's up flying and you're just hanging out waiting for them to either land out or to come back to see what's going on. Bring a book. Know who's running your retrieve desk. Know where that retrieve desk is located. Make friends with your retrieve desk. They have a favorite adult beverage or ice cream. They're the people who are going to help you out if you do get into that sticky situation, or who have that local knowledge that they can pass along to you. Understand who will the pilot contact. Some contests they have to contact the retrieve desk, and then the retrieve desk will contact crew. Sometimes they're allowed to contact the crew directly, and then the crew will go and be that liaison with the retrieve desk before you leave the site. And then please do, as someone who's ran retrieve desks, make sure you remember to contact and let them know when you have reunited with the pilot. Yeah, need it big on t-shirts. Speak up if you need help hooking up. Don't be shy, don't be embarrassed. We all need help at some point. Get the directions to the retrieve. Note about satellite phones. So we were in a situation where we thought we were being smart and we got a satellite phone for the glider. Great, that works out really well. Just remember that if you're not 100% sure how to get in, say, to a field because it's really large, or you're not sure which driveway or which frontage road gets you in, sometimes your crew might need a satellite phone as well because you don't have the reception there either. So that was one of my lessons learned, maybe the hard way, where you were actually like texting and throwing the cell phone up in the air to try to get it to enough signal to send, and that was how we communicated in one of our retrieves in Australia that ended up being a nighttime D-rig. So lesson learned about sat phones. If your pilot does, some contests will have a little land-out card as far as who to contact. This case, they use low crop arrows, so there was a password to plug in. As crew, take a picture of that so you have a copy too, if there's not enough for them to send out to you for the crew to take with. Crew expectations, contest retrieves. So again, personal opinion. Understand, does your crew want to be part of the team? Are they mostly there on vacation and they're just there for emergency sake? Can they be there to clean bug guts off your wings? Kind of what is that expectation? Also, is it a dedicated crew to you, or do you have one person from your club that's there to retrieve 3 different pilots? And so you have to figure out, well, first come, first serve, whoever lands out first, and then the others will just hopefully bring a book and have to wait until you get back and can go on the next retrieve. Days task shared, so if you aren't familiar with how a task sheet works, sit down, talk to your pilot, understand. What that means is I can pull up, especially if there's live tracking, even if there's a delay, I can see and track progress around a course. So when we've flown out of Chilhowie, they're 7 miles away from a state forest or state park. I like to hike. I know, okay, it's a 4-hour-long task. I have time to go do maybe an hour hike, go back, check my cell phone where I have signal. Oh, he's still up. He's only halfway around. I can go do another, 30-minute, hour-long hike, come back, check it again. He's still up. But that's also the conversation with my pilot that says, hey, I want to go hike. So 1, don't land out. And 2, if you do, just know I am checking every hour, but you might have to hang out for maybe an extra 30 minutes because I am taking some selfishness and having some me time, but that means I actually will come to the contest and retrieve you, and you can have dedicated crew. So that's some of the photos of me exploring local towns or local sites just at various contests during long task days or during rest days, knowing that will I be available to do glider maintenance or do I want to go play? And you just have to make sure you communicate it both ways. Downwind dash is how I first started crewing and is still one of my favorite ways to chase. This is our friend Matt Michael's Woodstock and his Yorkie. So Yorkshire Retrievers are the best, lucky. So Tony and Matt, who is his glider instructor, hanging out on the Woodstock and Cherokee 2, waiting for their crew very patiently, pretending to take naps. What the crew needs to know on a chase. 1 is don't rely on cell phone and data coverage. So even in today's modern world, like I was saying with the satellite phone, there are times where even if I have Google Map directions to get there, I may not always have signal. So Delorme atlases have been fantastic. We have them for all of the neighboring surrounding states, update them every once in a while. They are getting harder to find, but they've worked out pretty well. Bring a navigator co-pilot. So Summer Gajewski started her flight training the same time I did, and so she would just hang out with me and we'd go chase Tony around. Our club has a local straight-out contest called the Kansas Cowbell Classic, similar to the Dust Devil Dash out west. So it's just part of our club culture to go out and chase. Top off the gas on the way to the airport for the chase vehicle. Know what side of the chase vehicle the gas tank is on, what type of fuel does the car take or the truck take. I try to hook up the trailer prior to launch so it's there and it's ready to go. I know where the keys are. I know that we are going straight out. Try to preload the ground handling equipment into the vehicle. Brief your crew before those straight out flights. So is the pilot's plan, when are you going to head out on course? Is it once you've drifted a certain ways away, distance from the airport, and I can just look it up on your flight trace? Is it once you've reached a target altitude that, okay, once I get 5,000 feet AGL, wherever I physically am, I'm going to go for it? Is it once you reach, say, 4 knots for your thermal strength? What is that criteria? What's the signal for the crew to start chasing? Are you going to make a radio call? Do you just want them to follow along on the live tracker? Make sure you're all on the same page. And where is your original plan? So where's your initial waypoint, target point, that milestone that gives your crew some place to head in that direction, or to get on the radio before you get out of range to say, yep, we're continuing on with the plan, or no, I'm going more west than south. Communication plans, are you going to use radio? Do you have an antenna hooked up with your cell phone? Just how are you best going to utilize that? Pilots need to know for straight out, and this is really true, I think, for any outlanding, is secure the glider, start your D-rig, get batteries off. There's some things you can do. Don't remove all of your pins from the wings, but you can remove tape, you can get some of the safeties off, you can get your control locks in place if you fly with them, and stay safe. So sometimes when we fly, they are hot days, so sit under the wing with your water if there isn't a farmhouse or ranch house nearby that you can hang out in. So really anything that you can do to help speed up the loading of the glider into the trailer once your crew is there. So regular flight operations, the unplanned retrieve. This is our Cherokee 2 hanging out, I think, near Cheney Lake, near where we fly. Oh, never mind, I lie. But any flight can really end or result in an outlanding. So pre-flight, always make sure you fly with your cell phone. Tony's hitchhiked back to the airport at least once when I was still launching other gliders and thinking, how did you get here? Because he forgot his cell phone, so he wasn't able to call anyone. Have the phone number of your line manager, so even if your partner or spouse isn't there, you don't know, you don't have a dedicated crew, typically someone launched you, right? So make sure you have your line manager's phone number. Know if the glider you're flying has a trailer or not. So this is from the WISPA seminar this summer that I helped organize, and looking at the gliders, the 126 versus our Grobe 103, the 126 was fully ready to go cross country that day. Our Grobe had, the trailer was being repaired. So yes, they could fly cross country, but they would need to have an aero retrieve. So they had to keep that in mind where they were flying, versus 126 could go out and play and land in the cut hay fields, and there would be no problem because we knew that that trailer was ready to go. In summary, for the 4 key pieces of information are you okay? Is the glider okay? Where are you? Is there anything special about the retrieve? The one picture is from the Club Class Nationals out in Hobbs. Sometimes that's something special about the retrieve is that you landed out because there's a big rainstorm coming. The field is completely muddy. Sometimes that best decision is you tie down, you secure the glider as best you can, and you come back the next morning once things have dried out. So Andy Breyer got the trailer stuck out in the field because he drove out and it was muddy, and after a few tries of trying to get it free, just came back out the next morning, hooked up, and it pulled out, towed out just fine. So on a retrieve, sometimes the best thing you do is you just pick up your pilot, you get them back home safe, and you just go out the next day to retrieve the glider. So my contact information is on there. If you have any questions or want to talk about retrieves, want to share your favorite land out stories, please don't hesitate to reach out. And I'll take questions or stories if anyone has them. So we have about 7 minutes or so before the next one. So here, I'm going to walk the microphone around. But Kurt, we'll start with you.
Thank you. Yes, that was great, Leah. I have one that I can't believe I didn't think of this. Just happened the other day. My wife's helping me back my trailer into my little condo association, getting ready to come here. My 126 is out in the showroom floor. I hope you get to take a look at it. But we were backing it up, and it dawned on me I didn't want my neighbors hear me yelling at my wife while we're trying to back the trailer into our condo association. And my wife always does a great job. It's just we get impatient. We just get impatient. They do a great job. So I said, take your cell phone back there with you. So she was back behind the trailer with her cell phone. I had my windows up so they couldn't hear me yelling. I was yelling at her on the phone. And it was great. I didn't have to see her. She could back up the trailer and do great. So I wish I'd have thought of that sooner, but if you ever get in that mode, just use a cell phone.
Without the neighbors hearing too much.
Hello, I'm Thomas from Chicago Glider Club. I came late, I'm sorry. But I have only had one outlanding here, many in Europe. And my most important experience was that I should have called 911 to tell them that I'm okay, they don't need to send the crews. Because when I went to pick up my trailer, someone took me, it was just 13 miles away from the glider port. When I came back, there were 3 police cars, 2 ambulances, and a fire truck. Plus, another thing, I carry since then in my glider the famous letter from FAA, where someone asked if it's reportable, where FAA says no injuries, no damage to property, you don't have to report it. While the sheriff who arrived said, you need to file a report. I said, no, I don't have to. He said, then I have to write a report that you refuse, and it will take me 3 hours. Thank you.
No, that's absolutely a good point. And part of it, I think, is knowing the area that you're flying. We typically don't have a lot of problems or difficulty, but we also live in a community that's called the air capital of the world. So people are kind of used to things like this happening. When we flew the 126 competition out of Cedar Creek, we had a lot more pilots had similar incidences to having just people not really used to having gliders or hot air balloons in their field to know that, no, it wasn't a crash. The wind didn't quit, but yes, having that letter with, I think, would explain quite a bit. I've also have heard, bring your local farmer's almanac with. Obviously try to land where there's not crop, but I've also have heard that it's good to know what is the local the going rate of whatever is in season, so that if the farmer does try to upcharge you too much for crop damage, you can always pull that out, show them, and also offer to have that conversation in front of the law enforcement units. So anyone else? I thought I saw some more hands.
I worked retrieve desk at Cordial for 25 years. And as you heard, I said amen to telling the retrieve desk that you're going out. Ever since GPS and cell phones, the crews and pilots have decided that they are free of the retrieve desk. And I have sat quite late some nights waiting for people to tell me that they are with their pilot or that they are back and everything's okay. So please, please, please let the other people in your world know, even if it's just letting the club members know that the club glider's okay and on its way back.
Well, and that too, especially with the club operations, I know we've sat around once or twice waiting for someone to land or to just make sure you know where they are. So absolutely, even if it's just your standard day, that's part of knowing who is your line operator. Give them the call, say, yep, I'm not coming back, I landed out, but Tony's coming to get me, so you can go home. You don't need to wait up and see where that person is. So any other questions? All right, well, I did it with 2 minutes to spare, so I appreciate you coming out this morning, and have a good rest of your convention.